Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. I'm Sal, that's Joel, and we're going to be talking about good old-fashioned comics today on our show. But that doesn't mean that that's what the show's always about. Sometimes we talk about some samplings from pop culture that are tangentially related to comic books. But we like to break it up by talking directly about comics at least once every other episode or so.
You know, that's the wonder and the joy of the Elseworld Exchange. We don't know where this show's going to go. We're working without a net. We're working without an itinerary.
That's right.
It can be anything.
We're the Flying Graysons of comic book podcasting.
Here's hoping we end up better than the Flying Graysons, who just became the Flying Grayson because everyone else died.
That's true. But hey, at least they got Nightwing out of the deal, and he is a awesome character.
I loved I think it was like one of Kyle Higgins' last stories, it was his Zero issue, where they look back on the Flying Graysons, and their standard, like, circus costume is just Nightwing's 70s costume with the big collar.
That makes sense. That's a really good idea.
It's a nice reference. I'm like, yep, that's what circus gear would look like these days.
Yep. He looked like a circus clown.
Mm-hmm. He sure did. But only Dick Grayson can get away with the friggin' disco collar.
Oh yeah. Well, he was like, I'm a pinnacle of masculinity. What do I need to do? I got to show off my chest. But unlike Neil Adams, I don't have budding chest hair because I am yet but a boy. I am not quite a man yet.
There was a funny joke I saw. It was like a little parody tweet going around there where it's like, man, comics in 2016, they need to bring back the skin, but it wasn't any of the female characters. It was all like the male characters who had the super plunging necklines, like Captain America when he was Nomad, Disco Nightwing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was, you know what? Good on them. Like, I was going to say that was an embarrassing time, but you know what? Then in that case, it's embarrassing every time we force a new, cool, or classic female character to dress like an elaborate cosplayer on Halloween night.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But
there's been a lot of that. I've railed against Batgirl's new costume. Like, yeah, it's cool, but it's also just an elaborate cosplay costume when it makes no sense in the story, where it's like, well, why don't you buy better stuff?
Yeah. When I first saw that Batwoman or that Batgirl costume, I was like, okay, but at the same time, I kind of dig it. I like the motif they went with.
It's grown on me, like I said, even though it makes no sense in the story. Because like for that first arc, she's like, "Oh no, my storage locker burnt down with all my superhero stuff in it. What do I do? Well, I guess I'll just put something together with what I have."
Right.
But then as time goes on, it's like, you really should have bought new gear then.
Well, then she's like, no, like, I'm a victim of, the circumstances created a situation where that never would have come about if I had control over it. It's like the Scarlet Spider, people. That's like, true. He had no costume except for the classic head-to-toe suit and mask, but threw on a hoodie, and all of a sudden...
Sleeveless hoodie.
Oh, he made it a sleeveless hoodie. He'd rip those sleeves off. That way it shows how grungy and badass he is.
Is there anything more 90s than a sleeveless hoodie? I don't think so.
I don't know, man. Is there anything more 90s than the Scarlet Spider?
Nothing, really.
Very few things, especially with his ankle pouches and visible spider belt. But
speaking of ankle pouches, you had a thing, you were looking at a Superman action figure there, and you're like, okay, big giant gun I get, but what's the ankle pouch about?
Oh, that wasn't even an ankle pouch. An ankle pouch is really dumb. But a leg belt?
Oh, that's right. It was on his leg, wasn't it?
It's a big, stupid silver leg belt. But what it does is, I think, while it doesn't really serve any kind of function, it breaks up the blasé nature of a head-to-toe black suit.
You know what it is? I'm pretty sure that version of Superman was really, really afraid of Candiru fish swimming up his pant leg and biting him in the junk, so he was sure to put something on there to protect his leg.
I mean, let me tell you, that version of Superman had no power, so he would have been susceptible to that kind of attack.
Candiru fish, man, the deadliest of all fish. I'm going to say that right now.
Did you ever watch Project Runway?
No, I can't say I ever did.
Okay, I've 7 seasons deep, but like, there's a character or an actual man on Project Runway named Tim Gunn.
Character, no, a man.
No, a man, a real person, but plays a hilarious cartoon character of a person named Tim Gunn, who is fabulous and amazing. I want him on every reality show. You ever watch Face Off on Sci-Fi? Another show that I'm dedicated to and have to watch.
I haven't watched Project Runway, but I think I know the guy you're talking about because Mad TV would always make fun of him. He's like a weird silver-haired guy who's coming and goes, I'm not sure about that.
Exactly. He brings seasoned gay wisdom to the competition. He's their mentor and helper. He's
what Faust will be in 40 years.
Exactly. He's gonna be like, this worries me, or that's a lot of look. And one of the things that I always, in fact, he was so popular that like during the heights or near peaks of Project Runway, Marvel got in bed with it and created like an Iron Man book in which Tim Gunn appears. Look for it. There's a cover where Tim Gunn is standing in front of the Iron Suit, like, he's an amazing character. I love that guy. I want him in every reality show, especially Face Off, where he could show up. Michael Westmore, who did a lot of great effects for Star Trek and stuff, comes out. He's the Tim Gunn of that show. But I want Tim Gunn to come with him and be like, that's a lot of look for that spider-faced monster. I don't know. I mean, I understand it's a spider, but do we need 8 mandibles? I mean, doesn't the fact that it is a spider tell us what's a spider?
Man, you would just want to sit that guy down with all the worst superhero costumes. Like, hey, here's Captain America's Nomad. That's a lot of neckline.
That's the thing. They did that. They did that where they showed Tim Gunn a whole bunch of superhero costumes, and they go like, "What do you think?" And there are so many that he's just like. And one of the things that he didn't like the most was the classic black and white Spider-Man costume.
Really?
He was just like, so it's just black? Like, there's nothing interesting about it. For him, he was like, it's just a logo. And that's all. and for the Superman character, for that black costume Superman with a mullet, like, it's just head to toe black with a silver S. It's literally the black costume Spider-Man costume. And I think the way to break it up was give him a silver leg belt. It'll break up all that monotony. But I remember being like, oh, Tim Gunn's gonna love the sleek, slimmed down, classic look of the Spider costume. Nope, hated it.
Wow, that's interesting.
And that's just the one thing where I do not agree with the man. I love that suit.
They go back to that black suit a lot in the comics, don't they?
It's funny because they do when the situation in pop culture requires them to. Like if Spider-Man 3 is coming out, for example, all of a sudden Spider-Man will be back in black.
Time for back. I own a couple copies that are back in black. I think he was fighting like Mr. Hyde at the time. There's
a couple of. I mean, it depends on which. I mean, after right before One More Day, he does a whole bunch of like Back in Black like story arcs where he's fighting Kingpin or he's fighting whoever. It's really a cool idea, I guess, that was clearly dictated from on high. But anyway, costumes. That's another show. We should actually talk about costumes. That is
another show. You know, we should shelf that for another time. I think like who is the coolest costumes? Who is the worst costumes? Who wore it better?
Yeah.
Because multiple heroes sometimes wear the same costume.
It's true. By the way, Tim Gunn's favorite costume? Mr. Fix-It Hulk.
Really?
He's like, Hulk in a tuxedo? That looks fabulous. And he's like, what a cool idea. Like, you have this giant man in this refined suit. I was like, that's funny.
That's the one I would not, if I had money, if I was a betting man, I would not bet that that's the one he liked.
No. But today's topic is superhero crossovers, more specifically Marvel DC crossovers, but not going to dwell in the past. We're not going to talk mostly about the stuff that happened, but more speculate and ask the chat and comments, what's the future, if anything, of Marvel and DC crossovers?
It's been a very long time since we've had a big intercompany DC Marvel crossover, and you would think with the movies making money hand over fist, it would be a no-brainer to be like, well, yeah, obviously we got to bring these together at some point.
It's true. For me, I feel like the last big one was the Avengers JLA crossover, which I didn't really expect. For a while, I was like, "Oh, geez, this is finally coming out." Because back in the '80s, they were teasing this whole idea that Marvel and DC were going to get together and finally pit Avengers and JLA, because they'd never really done that before. Even back all the way in 1976 when they did Superman versus Spider-Man, and then all the way up to the Marvel DC crossover of 1996 or '97, which was horrible
in the heady days of 1996.
Yeah, back when they were just all that was funny. I almost admire them a little bit in 1996 or 97 when DC and Marvel were churning out holographic covers, gatefoil covers, or gatefold covers, foil covers, chrome covers, alternate covers. X-Men #1, which came out in I think 1994, is still the #1 best-selling comic book of all time. Why?
And because of it, it's worthless because so many people bought so many copies.
But the reason why it's the best-selling comic of all time is because there were like 12 covers, and they didn't do that yet, so people didn't know that they were the same freaking issue, and so the speculators bought them all up to collect them, and average readers were like, "Wow, there are a lot of X-Men comics out today." No, so
and now it's totally commonplace. Now every month the different companies come up with a different variant scheme.
That's the thing, and like for me, variants it is the epitome of greed and bullshit in the industry.
Some are nice, like that whole Neil Adams thing they did. I like a lot of Neil Adams art.
So I love alternate covers. I think it's a cool idea. I love the art that comes from them. In many ways, the variants are opportunities for them to do something new or something different or something
like Bombshells for one.
Yeah, something non-commercial
campaign that proved so successful it launched its own goddamn comic.
Seriously. And a great statue line, and they make calendars and posters and shit. Games. By the way, that's Aunt Lucia who does those original Bombshell designs, and
Beautiful
he's
stuff.
so great. He doesn't just do the DC characters. He did some really, really badass Star Wars ones. Cool. I have one. I should have gotten the other one. They're kind of like wartime, like girly type pinup posters where it's Leia,
like the kind you would see on like the fighter plane.
Exactly, or in a locker at in a GI's office or outfit.
The stuff that Steve Rogers would have up in his locker.
Right, yeah, and it's really cool stuff, very tastefully done.
Let's go get them, boys. Let's go get them Axis forces.
The cover that I love the most is Leia in the slave bikini on top of the cannons of Jabba's sail barge, and it says, like, "Man the cannons! Like, the Empire is coming!" And I'm like, this is funny and awesome. But, so variants are cool, but I feel like the way in which retailers get them is kind of cheap and bullshit. Like, you're forcing retailers to order thousands of extra copies that they're never gonna sell, that they can't return, so they can get, 5 variant covers? And then, of course, you get the digital version. Sometimes they just throw them all in so you can enjoy them for nothing.
It's true. It really is true. And I mean, it really gets out of hand when you have stuff like Dark Knight 3 Master Race that's going on right now. Million variant covers for that
It's
book.
cool. It's a neat idea. Like, hey, creators and artists and popular people who work on comics,
everyone wanted to do one.
What's your favorite moment from the Dark Knight Returns series, and portray it, and we'll throw it in. That said, fuck that effort. It's a really cool idea, and I love
effort for nothing,
and so much really cool art. So some of it better than the shit we're getting, which is saying a lot because Andy Kubert needed that extra time. The book, Dark Knight 3 Master Race #3, looks phenomenal.
Which came out today as we record this.
It looks phenomenal. We're going to talk about it on our show DK3 WTF, which comes out I guess next week.
It's been a while.
We haven't had any freaking books, But the variant problem is something that needs to be addressed because they're getting greedy and we're not even getting benefits from it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because DC Marvel, they're making all kinds of bullshit in 1996, 97, and then they said, fuck it, let's work together. We're both being obviously greedy in the exact same ways. Let's sell shit together. And so they did that whole terrible crossover where they're from different universes, and the universes are robot brothers, and they ask the fans to dictate who wins,
which is never a good idea.
Which is why Bone Claw's Wolverine beats Lobo. And it's just like, we finally got a big epic crossover out of it. We finally got these universes. We got these Titan bouts. Superman versus Hulk, 2 pages, and they couldn't even really decide who wins yet until the results came in.
And that's the real problem with crossovers right there, and especially intercompany crossovers.
Yeah.
Company, it's a word, whatever.
Just gonna move past that, but sure.
Just move past my flub, whatever.
Yeah.
it's the fact that when you have two characters together, you never want to make one character look stronger than the other because, that might tick off the fans of that other character and also might, nullify them too. It's like, why should I read about this guy if he can't beat so-and-so?
And it's funny because we talk about Superman versus Spider-Man in tomorrow's episode of Back Issues, and that's kind of what spawned this whole episode that I wanted to do, because I was like, man, like the idea of intercompany crossovers were amazing. That was the first one that they finally, where they're like, let's take our two real characters and put them together in the same universe.
Look at Sal here going for theming for his channel
right?
across the board, making sure everything lines up.
Exactly, which I don't normally do. But even back then, the first crossover, which is, in many ways, if you want to really inflate its allegory, we could say it's like when George Washington became president and a lot of the things he just decided randomly became part of the office of being president, like term limits and, just 2 terms, 4 years apiece. Like,
chopping down cherry trees.
Just the office itself and all the chicanery that comes with it. Was just because the guy didn't want to be president forever, so it was.
Didn't want to be king of America.
Exactly. So it was with the Superman Spider-Man crossover, where they're like, well, okay, like each character gets to have one slug in, and each character has to, respect the other, and there has to be just like this checks and balances system where they're both kind of are on the same level, at least in some capacity, and also they've got to fight, then team up. And fight the bad guys who all got together well before the superheroes fought. Like, the villains get along immediately, whereas the superheroes don't.
I never thought of that. You're right. Villains do get together.
But, as a consequence, it's usually the inverse, where the superheroes fight and then team up, whereas the villains team up but then fight, and then they're their own undoing.
Even though you would think that would be the other way around, because most kids' understanding is like, well, all good guys are friends anyway.
Yeah, but no. Well, it's funny because the kid understanding is like, sure, all good guys recognize each other, but who would win in a fight, though?
Yeah, that's the other thing of it. No, but really, though, what part of my toy box would beat the other part of my toy box?
Exactly. But as the crossovers continued, they were like, all right, well, let's watch them fight, or let's watch them just reenact the same formula over and over again. And after 1996-97, there was like a big drought because of how crappy it was and how universally panned it was. People still bought the shit out of it, but it was just trash. But it did usher in a whole bunch of other crossovers that were not part of that universe, or rather they weren't part of the event, which would have been, can you imagine? Event comics existed even back to 1981, but I think the event comic had been kind of perfected after stuff like Civil War.
Yeah,
where they're like, all right, here's the event, main book, tie-ins, maybe specialized series like Civil War Frontline that are created specifically to supplement the main event, and any stories that are any ancillary characters that are in the event can also have their own tie-in.
It's so streamlined. It's like we have one every year now.
Oh man, who could imagine that? But can you imagine intercompany crossovers being or following the same methodology as event comics today? Like, man, a DC Marvel event where they're both, or DC versus Marvel being a book, and then having like Amazing Spider-Man has its own tie-in where he deals with the DC universe, and the Justice League has their own tie-in where they're dealing with the Marvel universe. Just all these like ancillary crossovers and tie-ins. You wouldn't be able to stop the influx of money that is just pouring into the system. It's amazing that for all those reasons you mentioned that they don't do it. But I guess, as the chat is sure to bring up, it all comes down to ego. That's the thing, because after Avengers JLA, we haven't really gotten another crossover with Marvel and DC, at least, since then. And it's hard to imagine because the JLA Avengers crossover is perfect. And I used to hate it. When I first got it, it was, I think, 4 issues, and prestige form, just a great format, nicely bound, drawn by George Perez, written by Kurt Busiek. 2 titans in both wheelhouses. They both know the universes, and apparently they were also like encumbered because each time that like the book took so long to make that characters' costumes kept changing.
Oh, of course.
And so they're like, oh, but you have to change it so that like Iron Man's costume is more like it is now, which is hilarious because Iron Man was in such a state of flux at that point that like you just do the one from 30 years ago and you'll be fine.
And in many cases, heroes ended up wearing their worst possible costumes.
Some of them did, but the best part was because DC Marvel or JLA Avengers was more or less a crisis, you got every incarnation or iteration of those characters all kind of crossing over. Like they resurrected Barry Allen and Hal Jordan before they were resurrected to be part of the crossover. So much took place in that crossover that for me is like the most epic DC Marvel or the most epic crisis. Oh, I lost Joel. Hey, we lost Joel. I don't know what happened.
You lost Joel?
I know.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
The DC Marvel crossovers and the future of them.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of like a theming thing.
That's awesome.
I know. Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. So, all right, the fact that like you had this kind of crisis situation between JLA and Avengers, where like they deal with Corona, and there's this universe-threatening event, and it deals with time and space, and it's technically in continuity. It could have been a great and glorious herald for those two universes finally kind of acknowledging each other and taking part in a collaborative comics effort. Can you imagine? This is before Marvel was owned by Disney. It's while DC was owned by Warner Brothers, but Warner Brothers didn't care at that point. So DC was kind of left to its own devices. Can you imagine a world in which, after JLA Avengers and its success and everybody kind of being part of this world, that they said, you know what? We're all comics here. Let's make it happen. Let's make this work. They said something to the effect. I remember there was a rumor about a ongoing comic series called Spider-Man Batman, and it was going to be basically run by both companies, and it was going to be like an ongoing series, kind of like Batman Superman, where it doesn't really technically take place in any single continuity, but it could take place in any continuity, kind of like Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine. And I remember that was a rumor, and I was so hopeful, but I also was so cynical that I'm like, there's no way they're ever going to make that. So yeah, from that, I was just like, man, wouldn't it have been cool? And so that's kind of where I was going with the show, was like, let's talk about the future of Marvel DC, where we are, where we could have been, and what the future holds for them, if anything. Because where we are right now, with these two mega conglomerates owning both companies, and with those two companies both kind of really, really taking the wind out of each other's sails, it used to be there was a friendly competition between Marvel and DC. That's Joel. There used to be a friendly competition between Marvel and DC, but now it seems a lot more angry, a lot more, I don't know, vicious. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the chat and in the comments. Do you feel like there is some bad blood between those two companies or not? Because I feel like there is. I feel like it's less friendly and more direct, which doesn't really help anybody.
Well, now they get total feedback at all times from fans and people who don't like them.
Well, it's amazing because they've always had fans, or they've always had feedback, and just because it's instant doesn't mean that it's correct or proportionate to what the market wants.
Right, but it's harder to ignore. Like, you can just not open letters.
That's the thing. I was talking about this recently with somebody where I'm like, oh, it was the DC Rebirth announcement. After DC Rebirth was announced, they're like, hey, DC Rebirth, what the fuck does it mean? Who knows? And after Bleeding Cool did their article that had no basis for foundation, had no actual evidence or content, and they said, this is what DC Rebirth is, bam, 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 bam. DC felt they needed to acknowledge it, and so the first teaser that they released after that was the same exact fucking image, but then it said, it's not a reboot, and it never was. For a lot of people, they felt like, yeah! Or not for a lot of people. For the vocal people that I saw in forums, people were like, yeah! They're really telling us what's happening! For me, I felt like that was a knee-jerk, frustrating reaction
Oh yeah, of course it was.
I feel like that was like unnecessary. It was needless. Where they're like, it insisted upon itself.
No, of course it did. But both companies are trying desperately to keep control over what it is that they're putting out there, even though you can't really do that, but they want it.
Yeah. So yeah, from there, I was just telling the chat and Tiffany, who filled in for a few minutes.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you, Tiffany, for tagging in.
Sorry, just a second. Burp, 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 boom. Okay. I was just talking about how it feels like there's there's less likelihood of a collaboration between Marvel and DC because the competition seems a lot more.
It does.
Angry. It doesn't seem like it's just a friendly little ribbing between two people or two companies that are in the same fucking boat together.
Which should that be indicative of where we stand in comics in general right now? Like, are both comic companies doing so rough or feeling like they're doing so rough?
I don't think that they are doing rough at all. I think it's the best time in the world to like be reading comics, to be buying comics. It's doing better than it ever has, not including the inflated like period of the 90s. You can't count the 90s, really? I mean, you do, but like Gen 13 number 0 pre-ordered 1 million copies. 1 million copies? You know, Batman sells 170,000 copies in a good month. And for a number success. 1 or a number 50. There's no fucking way those numbers are ever going to be. So you can't really count the 90s, but I do occasionally go like, holy shit. But these are two companies that like they're doing the best shit they've ever done before, or at least they're doing new shit.
Consistent,
they're doing interesting stuff. They're trying new things. They're playing with formats. They got some of the most bright and interesting creators of their time, and they're being shackled by the times of the past and by their own self-imposed need to compete. Like Captain America Winter Soldier or Captain America 3 Civil War and BVP or BVS, Batman vs Superman. Both movies, it's not like people are going to see one or the other.
Yeah, you're going to see both. If you're a fan, you're going to probably pay to see both, and maybe in some cases you'll pay to see it multiple times. I see no reason why the comics need to bend over backwards to try and accommodate these movies that are going to make money hand over fist anyway.
Exactly. You could have them like, and all that matters to the conglomerates, to DC and Warner Brothers, is who gets the weekend, who wins, and it's like. Nobody, man. Everybody wins. The fact is, everybody wins when you make an R-rated Batman vs. Superman movie and a Civil War movie with fucking Spider-Man in it. Like, you know what? Why don't you both go to the fucking negotiating table and go, you get this weekend, you get this weekend, no direct competition, we both dominate.
We both clean house.
Clean house. There's no fucking reason to be combative about it. And at the very least, if the studios are going to be combative about it, I mean, look at Marvel Studios. This was a thing where when Iron Man comes out, we're all like, this is going to be the best fucking thing ever. And then there's like, we're making this and this and this and this. And then we're like, we're going to do a show, an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show that'll be part of the universe.
And
then
Netflix.
Yeah, and Netflix, but now we're hearing like that the TV studios and the movie studios don't get along.
Yeah, really.
And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? We're not we didn't come this far to trip each other up on our own fucking shoelaces here, guys.
Is that just human nature, man? Is that just what we're all about?
I guess it's just that like.
Are we all just like the hermit crab? Man, we can't prop a crab up. We gotta knock a crab down.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, it's a real thing. If you've ever seen crabs in a bucket, crabs will try and escape, but then the other crabs will pull them back down.
Oh, and they'll pull each other's arms off. I know. I've gone crabbing before.
Because a crab is such a cruel creature, it cannot, see another crab get ahead of it or get a foot up.
Yeah, I guess we are crabs. It sucks because like, if the movie studios can't get along, at the very least, why can't the comic book industries get along?
There's no reason. The comic industry would do it before the big ego-filled movie guys.
Well, like look at the X-Men movie 2000. Before that, Marvel hears, because Bill Jemas works his magic through movie studios to finally get an X-Men movie greenlit, and Marvel gets the word out. They're making an X-Men movie. Wolverine's going to be a big fucking deal because he sells goddamn comics, and they're going to explore his origin. And Marvel said, well, not before we do. There's no fucking way that the movies are going to dictate what the comics do. That's not how we roll. Not on our watch. So then they did Wolverine Origin, and they did a damn good job. It's a wonderful origin, and it perfectly fits in with his continuity. Paul Jenkins, I think it's Andy Kubert. I don't remember if it's Andy or Adam, but like in any event, Kubert's on it, and you got Paul Jenkins writing it. It was a gorgeous, great book. And it worked, and they were able to apply it to the movies, but even if they didn't, who gives a shit? Because the comic universe and the movie universes are separate and different. We don't need them to be the same thing.
I would say, too, probably two of the worst, most egg-on-their-face failures that DC has done in the last little bit has been trying to kowtow to their movies and TV shows. But it's like, hey, Jeff Lemire, you got a great Green Arrow run going on right now. Everyone loves it. You know, you're really breathed fresh life into the character. Everyone's digging it a whole lot. Well, how would you like to work in more characters from the TV show?
It's true. Like,
I wouldn't know. We think you should, though. People really want to see Diggle. So you should really work Diggle in, even if it makes no sense for your actual story. And then Aquaman, it's like, hey, Jeff Johns, you finished off a great run. Hey, Jeff Parker, you did really good picking up the ball and running with it. But Jason Momoa, though.
Yeah, it's going to look different, though, so...
and then to have in both those cases them just reel it back so hard and be like, okay, that stuff never happened. We're sorry.
And like, that's the bottom line, is that they always come back to the foundation, to the basics, and it's proof positive for me that the way to make good comics is to just do that. Is just make good comics and and recognize we're all in this together, guys. We're all in the same boat. Marvel went fucking bankrupt less than 20 fucking years ago.
Hard to believe, right?
You know what I mean?
Considering how on top of the world they are right
every
now.
20 years or so, the industry is gonna collapse. It's these same people who talk about how, like, American... I know you're not American, but, like, you hear about it, I'm sure, a lot. Like, American democracy is... there's only it's hanging by a thread. If this one elected official is elected, then everything will fall apart. Well, you don't have a lot of fucking faith in this goddamn democracy, then, do you? If one guy in a system of checks and balances can fuck up everything, like, because of one thing, everything falls apart. Like, no, it's a democracy. Like, you have no faith in humanity then.
I was going to say, I don't know, man. I was going to say, I don't think that's anything that another Bush administration couldn't get done.
Look, I try not to get involved in politics, especially on our channel, so I'll only say that the fact is... When I despise doomsayers when it comes to, like, the death of such and such, whether it's American democracy, the world, or the comic book industry.
Which they've been saying we're going to have another crash in the comic industry for, like, damn near 20 years now.
What will cause that crash is lack of integrity. What will cause that clash is inflated bullshit, is that variant cover crap, is... not recognizing that we're all in this together and we all fucking have a stake in this. And that's where people have, since the beginning of fucking comics, everybody wants to see a crossover, whether it's within the universe or when they start establishing there are universes or other comic book publishing companies, intercompany crossovers. They want to know, can Batman beat Captain America? Can Superman outrun the Flash? Like,
it's true.
And people want to see them pair up. There are so many great parallels by great writers in these crossovers that, you know, it's almost like a no-brainer. Look at the original crossover classics of Teen Titans and X-Men. It's written by Chris Claremont, and it's drawn by, I think... I don't remember who drew it. I think it was George Perez. But it's amazing art. It's great story, and it makes perfect sense. There's another great crossover, Batman Spider-Man by DeMatteis and Bagley, where they highlight their origins. It's two men who lost someone because of their self-perceived negligence, and the people who love them that recognize that they're wrong, and the nightmare monsters that, like, haunt their dreams. That's a great fucking crossover and a great, brilliant, like, paralleling of two people who believe that with their great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of thing that's like, you can't pretend that the other group doesn't exist, while also vehemently and desperately battling against them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like, the crossovers represent for me a sense of hope, a sense of wonderment, a sense of like, look at when, it's like, it's like when they take those photos of American presidents when they're all together, and you're like, look at them all sitting next to each other and fucking talking about the same thing and working towards a common goal and getting something together and really doing some good and setting aside their stupid bullshit for a second, just make something good happen. An intercompany crossover for me represents a celebration of the industry itself. And the fact that we haven't had one in 25 years or so, or in 20 years or so, is indicative of the wrong direction of comics. We're making a lot of great decisions. We're making a lot of big strides in the comic book industry. But treating each other, and by each other I mean companies, as hostiles is not the way to work it.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you've got your own pitch for a series of crossovers. I know I had a couple when you told me this was the topic we're going to do. So I have a couple. I'm sure you have a couple too. And I know the fans have been pitching ones too in the comment section.
That's true.
Who would like to go first?
Oh, well, go for it, man. I want to hear some of your picks, because here's the thing. One day they will do it. One day they will figure it out, because like everything, eventually the people who liked the thing that happened will become old enough to take over the industry. It's why we're getting some cool shit and some stupid shit, like Fuller House. Because the 30-something's in charge of that studio, so now we're making that.
You know what I liked? Full House. Let's do Full House, but with none of the characters from Full House.
Yeah, let's do that with all the characters you don't like. Cool, sounds great. But one day we'll see some crossovers. I think that...
It would be like, let's do a sequel to Seinfeld just with Newman.
Right. I mean, honestly, I was expecting there to be a Kramer show where it's Kramer and Bob Sacamano and Newman, and... I'm so glad that didn't happen, but I'm sure Michael Richards isn't.
Yeah, Michael Richards was sure to, nip that one in the bud.
Exactly. But I feel like there is hope for that future, and so in this optimistic future, these are the kind of comics that we would like to see. These are the kinds of pitches that we've got for the industry. For either ourselves when we break in, or for people listening who might have their ears towards the ground a little closer to the buffalo than we do.
Now, you said there that, these will happen at some point. Here's a pitch that probably wouldn't happen because it's a pitch just for me and maybe like two other people, and those two people might be the writers. I want to see Secret Six meets or versus, depending on how you would look at it, the superior foes of Spider-Man. That's what I want to say.
That is a thing that they could probably get away with now.
You think so? Because I mean, like, Secret Six is on its way out as of Rebirth, and Superior Foes was great, but only lasted like 2 volumes.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like, it would be cool. I think they would probably be like, "Can you make it Suicide Squad?"
Yeah.
Editorial would be like, "Okay, Secret Six, I hear you."
Well, hey, you know what? Suicide Squad Thunderbolts, that's fine too.
I'd read that.
I'd be all for that.
Right?
In like a non-stop death cage match, these, two government-assisted supervillain teams.
Yeah, or like one group is hired to take out the other group.
I'm all for that.
I'd be totally down for that.
Norman Osborn versus Amanda Waller in like an arm wrestling contest. I'd want the Osborn team.
I'm on Amanda Waller's team, but
No. I'm on Waller's team. I'm just saying I would want the Osborn in version of that team.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, not the Red Hulk's team.
No, not Red Hulk's team, which that had a great first issue with Steve Dillon art, and then man, that series went to hell really quick.
It was a really cool idea that I was totally on board for.
Then quickly got off.
Fell right the fuck apart.
You know who still really loves that Thunderbolts run? Charles Soule, who wrote the book after everyone stopped reading, and he will continually make reference to the stuff he wrote, even in Wolverines. He's like, yeah, that Thunderbolts team with the heroes, yeah, that kind of sucked, didn't it? Only to have one of his characters go, I don't know, it had its moments.
I hate when writers only reference their own stuff, or will do it because nobody else will. It's one of my concerns about like the Ultimates, where they're referencing like the new element in the Marvel Universe and how it could fuck up everything. It's their new like Infinity Gauntlet MacGuffin, but only that writer has only ever created it and referenced it. So I'm like, you can't say that that's the thing now. You can't say that's the great new thing. It's like fucking when Silver Surfer with Dan Slott was like with whoever, Dawn, and she's like, and they get to the end of the universe, and the incursions have destroyed everything, and they're like, yeah, but we got something. I'm like, no, you're not. No, nobody's reading your book enough for that to influence what's happening in Secret Wars. But yeah, I was talking about this before, during your absence for the brief period that you were gone. But
it happens.
They had pitched, after JLA Avengers, they pitched a Batman Spider-Man ongoing series as a co-production, a la Batman Superman or Superman Batman, like by Jeff Loeb. Wow. Where it's like, it could be in continuity, or it could not, like, whatever. It's more like Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, where it's like, look at these two going on adventures and doing stuff. I'm like, fuck, yes, I want to see that. Like, I love the self-contained nature of these crossovers, where it's like, here's a book, and it's beginning, middle, and end. But sometimes I just want to see, like, that way you could see these, like, you could see the things that they don't have time to put in.
Here's another pitch for one I'm surprised they haven't done yet, especially with all the movie heat that's going on, and especially because this character is always getting weird in and out of continuity miniseries. Deadpool versus Deathstroke.
Yes.
Just do it, and just make all the jokes that we as fans have been making for years, where it's like, haha, I'm just kind of a ripoff of you.
It's true.
I mean, I'm way more popular than you.
Right, and he's like, yeah, but I'm actually like a badass. Like Deathstroke being like, fuck you, I actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I got a movie, you got a TV show, which you were then quickly written off of because maybe you'll be in Suicide Squad, maybe you won't.
Right. He's like, what? I don't even know what that is. What's a Suicide Squad movie?
What's a movie even? We don't have those in this universe.
Yeah. Apropos that, I think the book that if DC and Marvel ever got their heads out of their ass and wanted to announce they were doing a crossover, the book that I wouldn't necessarily be the first one to buy, but would print money, is their Deadpool Harley Quinn book.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And all the variants they would come up as a part of that, certainly.
Oh, my God. And it could just be like Deadpool and Harley destroy the universe, and it's just them dealing with their respective universes, or not, whatever.
Dude, you give that to Duggan and Palmiotti, they will knock that out in a weekend. Amanda Connor will draw.
Amanda Connor on art would be fucking fabulous.
Because Palmiotti writes Harley Quinn currently, and he wrote Deadpool for a spell too, so he has knowledge. I'm sure Palmiotti would jam it with references to stuff he wrote.
Oh, no doubt.
And he'd be like, hey, remember the time Deadpool did this?
Yeah.
And then Deadpool would break into Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor's house because Palmiotti's done that joke too, and he'd be like, stop referencing things you did. I can't help it though.
I'm sorry. And then Deadpool hits on Amanda Connor.
Yeah. Right. I love in Harley Quinn #0 when Catwoman and Harley Quinn crash Palmiotti and Connor's wedding.
That's funny.
And they're robbing from everyone, and Harley's like, gee, I kind of feel bad about this. I've seen the sales for All-Star Western. And I'm like, oh, nice. He's not afraid to punk himself.
Right. Another one that I would like to see that was in the works, but then they said will never happen, the writer and artist team have both said, as early as the last time I tweeted at one of them, a Batman Daredevil book.
Oh, see, that one seems almost too obvious, doesn't it?
Well, it's so obvious they did one.
Oh, that's right, they did.
And it's not good.
But who wrote that one? That was...
That's a good question. I think
I
have
say it was Miller, but no, it wasn't.
No. It was, well, I don't know. I'll pull it up. Hang on. Because I have to know. Because it was during a period where, like, it was not the best period in Batman's history. It was written by Alan Grant. With art, or no, I'm sorry. It was written by Matt Hollingsworth.
I was going to say Alan Grant, the man who's not Grant Morrison or Alan Moore.
Yeah. The cover is the best part of this book. But, yeah, the book that I want is Batman Daredevil, written by Bendis, with art by Alex Maleev.
Ooh, that's a good artist.
It's just really fucking dark and cool, and, like, it just explores those two characters and their self-hatred.
Yeah.
I would read the shit out of that book, and I tweeted at Maleev maybe like a few months ago, and I'm like, somebody asked me on Twitter, they were like, what's your favorite crossover? And I'm like, Batman's Daredevil with @Maleev and @Bendis. Maleev's like, fuck yes, man.
But Maleev is kind of French, to be like, fuck yes, man.
Yeah, exactly.
is what he. It's funny. I'm sure I told this story before, but this fan expo, I was interviewing Charles Soule right before he took over Daredevil, and I was saying, man, are you worried about taking over this book because there's this great legacy of writers from the good Frank Miller years to Bendis to Rucka to everyone in between, and then Maleev, who's on the table right across from me, he's like, hey, what about all the artists who have been involved? And I'm like, hey, we all know you were great, Maleev. We all know you did a good job. Damn right you did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I'm like, dude, I just got punked by Alex Maleev.
Yeah, that's awesome. That said, by the way, somebody in the chat was like, what about Frank Miller? Frank Miller wrote Daredevil and Batman, and wouldn't that be a beautiful disaster? I completely agree.
Only if he gets to write it now.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we're not doing time travel. We're doing, just living in the now. If they could get their heads out of their asses, make this thing happen. A Frank Miller written, maybe drawn, Batman Daredevil crossover would be just a nightmare. But the most amazing epic nightmare of all time.
I could just imagine them both shirtless in the rain, screaming at each other. I'm the goddamn Batman. No, I'm the goddamn Daredevil.
Don't take the Lord's name in vain, sock.
That's right. I'd like that a lot.
Oh my god, those two.
And then you'd be like, wait. Is Frank Miller parodying fascist states, or is he actually all for a fascist state? I can't tell anymore.
I don't know. That's the beauty of that character. I tweeted at Todd McFarlane the other day about how I was picking up a Wizard magazine, and I have this amazing Wizard where the cover is drawn by J. Scott Campbell, and it's of Spider-Man and Spawn.
Nice.
Where is that crossover? And the only person that should draw it is Todd McFarlane, because I fucking want to see that shit. Mm-hmm. I want to see Todd McFarlane draw Spider-Man again. Just one double-page splash.
I'm sure that crossover exists in McFarlane's sketchbook.
Oh, no. I mean, look. Let's be real here. Spawn's mask is just a variant on Spider-Man's mask.
Yes, it is.
So, yes. It's just Spawn. It's just Spider-Man in a cape. With, a bunch of 90s crap all over it.
Yep. Chains and whips and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah. And spikes.
So many spikes.
But that said, I would love to see a Spawn Spider-Man crossover. It would be so dumb.
It would be. What would the story of that even be?
What would the story be? I guess that you know what it would be? That's a story that they would be like, okay, well, we're not going to set it in today. We're going to set it in the past. So the symbiote finds Violator.
Oh, there you go.
And you have Ventilator.
Ventilator, yeah.
And he's the mouth with a tongue, and it's the logo, and
it looks even more alien.
Extra
than before.
Arms. And Spawn and Spider-Man's like, what the fuck am I looking at? And
Spider-Man's like, it's okay, I'm an expert on fighting symbiotes, so I'll help you out.
Exactly. And the other thing is, Spawn's costume is a symbiote, so you could do a thing there where maybe the symbiote is purged off of Spawn, but he takes the Venom symbiote or the Carnage symbiote, and the Carnage symbiote goes to Violator.
And you know how you end that one? They're fighting on top of a church, as 90% of Spawn is.
Yep.
And then Spawn just, uses his chains to ring the bell, and the bell, hurts the symbiote.
Yes. Oh, that'd be amazing.
And Spider-Man makes a quippy joke, sanctuaries.
Yeah. I could also see an image where Ventilator has Spider-Man on the ropes, and then you hear this clang, and it gets their attention, and Spawn uses his chains and cape to he stole the bell, and he's ringing it in the alleys, and the walls of the alley create a more cacophonous sound.
And the bums are all like, we're trying to drink over here.
As much as I want to see that, it's a stupid idea.
It kind of writes itself at a point.
It really does. Even though those characters have nothing to do with each other and have no...
It's like, what would they even talk about when they're not fighting bad guys?
It's like the Spawn Batman crossover, where it's like Batman thinks Spawn is an asshole, and Spawn doesn't know what he's doing there.
Yeah.
But also written by Frank Miller, also completely fucking insane.
Now, obviously, these are just, comic characters crossing over with other superhero characters. Yes. We've seen some cool crossovers in the last little bit that have been, weird properties, like Green Lantern, Star Trek, and Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes, we have. Thankfully, we are seeing collaboration within other corners of the industry. But Mommy and Daddy need to at least... come to the same play together.
Nice choice of words.
If they're divorced, at least show up for your kids. But at least Uncle Larry at IDW and
Happy old Uncle Larry.
Yeah.
W.
And Image.
Aunt Peru of Dark Horse.
Yeah, I mean, you got Dark Horse, man, that's the thing. But you got something as old / recent as the Invincible Spider-Man crossover, where you had Invincible meet up with Spider-Man, and how fun that was, and that was kind of cool. That was a cool crossover. And Kirkman's like, hey, look, this isn't necessarily the most depressing fucking thing ever, and you're like, wow, how hard to believe. Thanks.
Good for you, Robert.
But any other pitches you got for a hopeful future, a bright future?
Here's one I'm shocked that Marvel hasn't actually done yet. Like, shocked. Guardians of the Galaxy meets Star Wars.
Now, that's a thing I think is inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, it has to, right? It has to.
I think that Star Wars Marvel will have to happen at some point or another, even though it is a creatively bankrupt concept, because it's like, the last thing I need is Star Wars to be polluted by other universes.
At that point, you just become Patton Oswalt from that filibuster thing.
Exactly. It's almost a little too on the nose. But that said,
it's almost too nerdy for me. I'm like, no. If I read this, I'll want to give myself a swirly and kick my own ass.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Would it be awesome? Yes.
Yeah.
Would it disrupt everything? Yeah.
Yes.
It would ruin it. I mean, like, when do you pick it? Like, what period in Star Wars do you pick? Does it change anything? Does it affect anything? And I guess the way you do it is you set it between A New Hope and Empire, and you say that there's
Which
like
is
an
where we are now currently in the comics that are really good.
And you set it, and you say that it's an alternate thing, or like once Marvel gets involved, it spawns another universe where it goes off another direction. I feel like that's the only way you could do it, because like you can't. I mean, like, well, because I like things to matter. I hate when it doesn't, and I hate when they're like it was like the Planet of the Apes Star Trek crossover, which I don't know if you got anybody fucking read that except for me. If you ever catch our appearance on Comic Book Men, which should be this season. The season that's playing right now will be the one where you see me, Tiffany, and Ben.
I keep meaning to watch that.
On Comic Book Men. But if you see me in the background, I'm reading the Star Trek Planet of the Apes crossover.
Nice.
Because they had the trade there. Read it cover to cover.
Star Trek, which also had a crossover with X-Men at one point.
They had two crossovers, one in a novel form, which was terrible.
I'm thinking of the one where they fight Gary Mitchell.
Yeah. There's a comic book version which has, I think it's the original series cast, where it's so they could make the joke where Dr. McCoy is being
so
caged.
They say, Dr. McCoy, we need you, and then both Dr. McCoys look up.
And you're like, this is the whole reason you made this stupid thing, isn't it?
Just for this joke.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, like, by the way, it took place during a period when it's like, yeah, they'll do crossovers for anything. Fucking how about Archie Punisher?
Yeah. And Wolverine Jughead, which never happened.
Yeah. They did, there's also the Batman Punisher crossover that I'd like to see written by Garth Ennis.
Wouldn't that have been way better? Imagine if they gave Garth Ennis the keys to Batman.
Oh my God.
What he would do with it.
They basically did. Garth Ennis created and wrote a character named Hitman for a while.
Oh, yes, I do believe I remember the Hitman.
Yes, and
Tommy had 1947 Hitman.
Yeah, and Tommy had his experience with Batman, and we kind of got we got what Garth Ennis' opinion of Batman is from that. But yeah,
Terminator Superman, that was another one that totally happened. Superman crossed over with Terminator, and it was the cyborg Superman working with Skynet.
That's fucking hilarious and awesome. That's like that's a no-brainer. That writes its fucking self.
Because again, cyborg Superman is just a Terminator. Just look at his face.
He's just a Terminator. Well, I mean, the Batman Predator crossover is the best.
Batman Alien crossover.
Batman Alien is amazing.
Where it's Batman just fighting aliens in a temple.
It's the plot of Predator.
Yes.
With aliens and Batman.
And Batman.
Brilliant. It's two parts.
Like something someone scrawled on their notebook in shop class.
I think it's only 2 parts. The art's awesome. The story's sweet. And it can take place at any point in Batman's history. It doesn't matter. And it's super cool. Fucking totally on board. It's really, really great. That said, there's Predator versus Superman, which I have. It's not great. There's also Predator versus JLA, which I also have. It's the worst thing ever.
Let's not forget that Alien versus Predator is also a comic crossover.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a crossover: Alien versus Predator versus Terminator.
Wow.
It's worse than awful.
Wasn't there also a RoboCop versus Judge Dredd at one point too?
I know there was a RoboCop versus Terminator. I don't know about Dredd. Probably. There's a Batman Dredd. There's 2 of them.
If Judge Dredd hasn't fought RoboCop, Judge Dredd should fight RoboCop at one point.
Easily, no question.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me. No, dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Batman versus Dredd was fun, if not fucking off the wall bonkers.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Judge Dredd stories are, like, for the people who have only seen the movies, Judge Dredd is fucking weird.
Judge Dredd is bonkers, and if it's not, then it's not really Judge Dredd. If you like, the movie is fucking great. It's for me my favorite iteration of Judge Dredd. The comics are not for me. They're a little too off the wall for me. It's a little too European for my sensibilities.
Very European. It's very, very European.
But that said, that movie is fucking amazing, and I think even Dredd fans are like, no, that movie's really great. By the way, rumor has it, not that they're making a sequel, because they never fucking will, but they might make a show.
I would like that very much.
I'd like that more.
Bring Judge Dredd to Netflix, please.
Yes, I'll take that.
Imagine a season of Judge Dredd and just every episode's another case.
Exactly. And just on the same fucking budget they had the last movie. I remember seeing...
And you can also explore the themes that the movies never had time to explore because, no, we're shooting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like, that movie is so brilliant. The way that they open it up, they show you the universe, and then they get trapped in a building where they built one set. Fucking gold. Like, thank you.
The idea that it's an action movie that finally has a reason to do gratuitous slow-mo.
Oh my god. Yeah. That was... And I saw that movie in 3D, which I hate doing. I hate movies in 3D.
I wish I saw it in 3D.
And I was like, this is cool. This is all right. You did a good job. Like, all right, movie. Good job. You figured it out.
Yeah, the chat keeps yelling this one at me, so I'll finally say it.
Okay.
And it would be a good chance for more conversation. When comic book characters cross over with celebrities, like the one-time Punisher met Eminem.
I hate when that happens. I think it dates it to the worst degree.
A little bit.
And celebrities for me are unnecessary. Like
I actually did read the Punisher Eminem crossover. You know what the weirdest thing is I took away from it?
What's that?
Man, Barracuda is really out of character in this.
Oh.
That was my big takeaway. Barracuda, the Punisher villain who everyone remembers because he got his own miniseries. I'm like, man, this guy's really out of character. He would have just shot him and been done with it.
Yeah.
And he would have eaten his face and sang a song about it. And I love the reasoning for why Eminem and Punisher have to team up. And that is, you see, Barracuda, before he became an assassin, he was in the rap game for a bit.
Naturally. I mean, like, when they do... I remember the first one that I read was when Spider-Man teamed up with the cast of SNL.
Oh, God, that is the thing.
John Belushi.
And the villain was Silver Samurai, so you could have the Samurai versus Silver Samurai.
So stupid. But, like, that wasn't an event. That was just a joke. It was just a one-off issue that they were like, here's something.
And yet very New York, too, because you figure Peter Parker lives in New York. He's probably seen a couple Saturday Night Live tapings.
He probably took at least Mary Jane to a taping.
Yeah. And Mary Jane's like, I don't get this. This show hasn't been funny in forever.
It's like 1978. She's like, I like the old cast better.
Yeah, really? Oh, God. But, I liked it when it was weird stoner humor.
Yeah. I remember in Ultimates when, like, it was nonstop celebrity cameos, like Shannon Elizabeth. And I'm like, oh, this book came out in 2000. How do I know that? Because of Shannon Elizabeth.
I like even the movies do that. Like, you go back and you watch Iron Man 1. It's like, oh, Jim Cramer's Mad Money. No, really.
It's funny because there's always that funny, like, line for topical references in your timeless, like, action films. Because if it's done right, it works, or it crystallizes it into a beautiful, like, moment in time. But if you do it wrong, it's garbage, or it's incredibly depressingly dated.
Sometimes it's cringeworthy. I remember in that terrible American Godzilla, there's a bit there where they're like, "Oh, the worst tragedy to hit New York since the Twin Tower bombings of whenever." And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know. It's okay.
No one could have known.
Well, like the co-mayors of of New York in the Godzilla remake.
Siskel and Ebert.
Siskel and fucking Ebert.
Because the director really hated those guys, and so he devoted an entire part of the movie just to being like, "Oh, I hate you."
Which is like, who the fuck are they?
And you know what I loved about that is that when Siskel and Ebert saw the movie, you know what their big complaint was? So you make us the mayor and co-mayor of the city, and you don't even feed us to the monster? Thumbs down.
Yeah, exactly. It's so
I'm like,
weak.
You're right, Siskel and Ebert. Thumbs down to that shit. Take off your shoes and toes down.
But yeah, celebrities in comics, I like when they reference them sometimes, but when they do it overtly, it feels a little like, all right, let's move on.
Now, I'm fine when they show up in the background because sometimes I'm not okay. Sometimes that annoys me more. I remember they made a big deal. I think it was a Spider-Man issue where they're like, "Oh, look, the cast of The Big Bang Theory is in the background." I'm like, no.
Yeah, of course they are.
I reject this.
Classic, because and it would be brilliant to put it in a Marvel book, since Big Bang Theory is prohibited from fucking using any of them. Like, they can't use Marvel characters. It's all DC over there at Big Bang Theory.
See, I don't even watch the show, so I didn't even know that.
It's legit. It's literally all DC, because Warner Brothers.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, they can reference the characters, but like at one point, one of the characters dressed like the Norse god Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to wear he looks like a fucking idiot because he's not even close to the comic book Thor. And you're like, come on. I hate that show.
The chat had another funny one there. What about Kardashians versus the X-Men? And I'm like, well, they are a bunch of weirdos who live in a mansion, so they might get along.
I mean, they are, both teams are addicted to drama. So I can see that happening.
It's so true. Their lives, they can't operate with that. I imagine like the Kardashians lose their house, and so they start looking at Professor X's mansion. It's like, we want to buy this place. And they're like, no, we're not going to sell it to you.
Yep, and then they feature them on the show and like try and like publicly strong-arm them into like relinquishing the property. Yep, that's a book. And you know what?
It's like, Professor X, why don't you just use your mental powers to make them not want to do it? No, that wouldn't be fair.
That wouldn't be fair. But meanwhile, all the other civil rights violations that I've committed or human rights violations I've committed would fucking be fine.
Yeah, Cyclops is like, we gotta get these cameras out of here, man. There's a lot of shady crap we're doing around here that I don't want exposed. Cyclops, get the camera out of my face.
Yeah. Or, of course, the greatest crossover of all time when Spider-Man helped out Barack Obama.
He did, that's right. Now, is that issue actually worth anything now, or is that another X-Men?
I doubt it. I think it is definitely...
So many?
I'm sure it's worth nothing.
People bought it thinking it would be worth something.
Anybody who goes out to buy a book because of something that happens in it and thinking that like if they sit on it for a couple of years it'll be worth something is an idiot.
Yeah, and it happens a lot.
I mean, like, those days are over. The only ones you should invest in are ones that people haven't been able to get for 30, 50 years. Like
the last comic, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, that's actually worth something is Walking Dead #1.
Yes.
Because there was an incredibly short publication of that. I think it was only something like only a couple thousand.
Yeah.
Were actually printed of Walking Dead #1. So if you have a first edition Walking Dead #1, that's worth a lot. And they do sell for a lot, usually on eBay when a new season of the show starts up.
Yes, but when that show tanks or when it like eventually dies, it will not be worth as much anymore.
It's got a spin-off now, and it's in like its 6th, 7th season. I think if it was going to tank, it would have tanked long before this.
I mean, it will eventually end, and that's when you'll see, those days over. I remember when Cap died, there was a whole speculation there was an attempted speculation takeover where people went. I remember the store that I shopped in back there, or back then, was inundated by speculators. They were sold out.
It's funny Cap got it, but Wolverine didn't when they were trying to kill Wolverine.
You called the event Death of Wolverine.
Death of Wolverine.
You made it a mini-series.
which is a great series. Don't get me wrong, I really like that.
Oh my God, McNiven knocked it out of the park. That was when we first started on Off the Rack to do. We're gonna do the whole show. We're gonna do the whole series. We're not gonna just do one issue. We're just gonna do the whole damn series. When it comes out, we'll just do it because it was so awesome. Kind of an anticlimactic ending, but
it had to be though.
Yeah, it didn't have to be. It could have been good, but it was not.
See, I dig just no words, just Logan reflecting on his life.
Oh no, that shit was awesome. I just mean like they wrapped up everything in kind of a villain monologue.
Yeah.
You know, like we spent a lot of time on a lot of different characters who didn't add anything to the plot, but really made it a really cool comic. But then at the end of it, it was somebody else, and he reveals himself at the end. It's just kind of like, just felt like it was a little weak.
I never read all of the Wolverines. Where did that go? Because I know they were fighting over like his adamantium encased corpse.
I don't know. I remember being schooled recently. Somebody was like, "Oh no, they took him out of the adamantium." I was like, "Oh really? How?"
I dropped off reading what is it, Sons of Wolverine or The Wolverines, when it's like, oh, okay, so you guys are just doing shit now. You're not actually going in any direction.
Nope.
You're just having shenanigans.
Oh, you mean like a comic called Who Will Wield the Shield?
A lot of shenanigans.
Fuck that. Stupid. Just a stupid attempt. I mean, like, did they do cool things? Listen, if you have a writer and a person who writes for a living and you tell them to do something, if they are worth their salt, there will be some moments that are really cool and genuine out of it.
Oh yeah.
But even if you are forcing them to further some dumbass agenda, but I'm not going to help you.
Fun fact, now that I think of Wolverines, it was in that book that Charles Soules created this woman thief character, who I think she's French and she has a talking cat and everything. Because it was her who mentioned the Thunderbolts run that he did before, and now that lady thief character is in the newest arc of Inhumans. She just stole some stuff from the Inhumans, and I'm like, man, Charles Soules really loves this character.
He was like, you know what, no one's going to use that character, fuck you, I'm going to use her.
Guess what, she's coming back now.
Yeah, and she's going to be a real big deal.
Yeah, so say I.
All right, man. Do you have any other pitches that we should talk about, or should we wind down with thoughts of the future?
I'm sure I can think of something. Man, I thought I had so many more. I
yeah, me too. I like the fact is
I blew my wad too early on this one.
I know that Secret Six one is a really cool idea though.
That was my top one. I'm like, well, shit, I got nothing.
Well, I want to see that.
Maybe Justice League versus Squadron Supreme, because Squadron Supreme are just Marvel parody characters.
That would be amazing. I mean, like the fact is, what I really like to see is DC and Marvel. I don't want to see them necessarily owned by the same company, but I would like to see them be part of the same. Acknowledge it. You know, like Grant Morrison can be like, that in this world over here might just be Marvel, but like, no, make it be part of it.
You know what else would be a fun crossover? Milestone with the main DC universe. I'd love it if that happened.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool if they could just acknowledge they own those characters?
I love that they're just like, Milestone. Was Milestone? Never heard of it.
Yeah, fuck them. I don't understand, too, because it's like, what's the purpose of buying it if you're not going to use the damn thing?
Friggin' Midnighter and the Authority and Stormwatch and all those characters got more of a push and more of an attempt at, integration than they did with anything from Milestone.
It's true. It's just weird. It's weird with their... See, that's the thing. Like, it's weird, their decision-making. Like, I understand that bats sell comics, but you're a publishing company. You make books. You tell stories. And it's... Like, why do people like certain characters? Like, they like them because of a story that had an emotional resonance. If you put it there, they'll buy it.
It's even funnier in the wake of DC Rebirth, where it's like, yeah, we're honoring our legacy and the legacy of our characters. I'm like, well, what about all these other comic character companies that you own? Nah, screw that.
Fuck them.
I would love it if Jeff Johns said that in the video. It's like, and Static Shock and, and Hardware and Blood Syndicate and Midnighter and Authority and Stormwatch. Fuck them.
Fuck them. You're going to see more Bat than you've ever seen before in your life. Now, that said, like, a Batman Rebirth book, I'm all for it. Like, you did an amazing job. Green Lantern and Flash Rebirths are spectacular. I'm surprised it took you this long.
Batman Eternal is great, and I like that Jeff Johns mentioned the success of Batman and Robin Eternal.
Yes.
When it came to reintroducing old Batman characters in cool, interesting ways.
It's very cool. It's very cool. I appreciated the hell out of it. I think that DC Rebirth is going to really is going to take off in a way that DCU didn't, and in a way that New 52 was incapable of. I don't think that it's going to be... I don't think DC Rebirth is going to be as successful on paper as New 52. I don't think it's going to beat it.
It is an interesting culling where they're like, okay, so every book we introduced in DCU, yeah, that's all gone now.
Yeah.
We're going back to the bare bones. And also, even other books like, okay, Birds of Prey is back, but we don't trust it to just be Birds of Prey. So now it's Batgirl and the Birds of Prey.
I mean, I see what they're doing, and I recognize why it's important. Just don't treat us like idiots, and don't... And have a fucking plan. Like,
Green Lantern Corps wasn't as popular as we wanted, so now it's Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern
I mean, like,
Corps.
here's the thing. Like, don't publish as... I think they need to half their publishing
They basically
output.
did.
And
they basically did that.
That's a great fucking idea. Like, I mean, the fact is, if you could put top quality... I mean, the fact is, good shit sells. It's how everything works. Like, it's how everything... It's the basis for everything. Like, sure, people like cheap, but you know what I mean? Like, the piracy of music has kind of died when you made music just easily available and cheap enough. So it is with comics. Like, if it's good, it will sell. And if you half the amount of book output, and you put decent fucking people on them, and you put it out regularly on a good schedule, then you will have a titanous industry. It will be really, really great.
The chat just came up with a good one, too. Who owns Men in Black? What comic company was that by? I know they got bought up by someone.
It wasn't Mirage. It was like...
It was started with an M, but it wasn't Malibu.
It wasn't Malibu. It wasn't Mirage.
I think Marvel owns Men in Black. I want to say they own the rights to it.
That's interesting. I would hope not.
I want to say they own it, and if so, let's have Skrulls versus Men in Black.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be a thing? Wouldn't that be great? And you get Agent K and Agent J back.
I mean, like, if Agent K and Agent J as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents? Or the Men in Black being an arm of S.H.I.E.L.D. would be fucking cool.
Well, wouldn't they technically be more of an arm of S.W.O.R.D. because S.W.O.R.D. deals with aliens?
I think S.W.O.R.D's dead. I think they got rid of S.W.O.R.D.
Did they get rid of S.W.O.R.D.?
I think now it's Alpha Flight.
I keep waiting for S.W.O.R.D. to come back in one of those Marvel TV shows.
Yeah.
At some point, where it's like, come on, you need the evil agency for them to go up against.
I really thought
really Hydra.
Yeah, I really thought S.W.O.R.D. was coming. Like when they were like leaning towards the whole alien problem, I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I kept waiting for that lady, like Phil Coulson's love interest. I'm like, say S.W.O.R.D., say it.
Yes!
You want to say it, say it, say it, say it.
Come on, be S.W.O.R.D. Nah.
No, we're not S.W.O.R.D., we're the APA or whatever.
Holy shit, it was Malibu.
Was it Malibu? Okay. Wow, I see. Go me then for remembering that it was
I
Malibu.
remember it was one that I had heard of. Because I remember it being in the opening credits. I was like, oh, right.
Now what was Malibu's big superhero universe? The Megaverse or the Ultraverse?
It was the Ultraverse with like Prime and Zombie Guy or whatever.
And the one who looked like Booster Gold and Iron Man had a baby.
Yep.
That guy.
Stupid.
And all those stuff. Man, the friggin' Ultra Force cartoon.
The cartoon?
Show. Yeah.
That was fucking great.
That theme song, it was just Ultra Force!
Ultra Force Extreme!
Dude, let's just get all the defunct cartoons together. Let's have Savage Dragon crossover with Ultra Force, crossover with Wildcats.
One of the greatest theme songs in the 90s.
Wildcats. Unbeatable power.
They're
So
heroes, not zeros. Inspired lyrical stylings. Thank you.
Man, Jim Lee wrote that himself.
He probably did.
Scrawled that on a napkin and said, make it sound like this.
But those...
I love that Grifter is, like, still kind of around.
They're still like, yeah, Grifter. You could... I mean, like, fuck, man. I get that Gen 13 was just a Cheesecake Factory, but, like, you could sell a Gen 13 book today. A teen book comprised mostly of females that have interesting powers. Like
today's Marvel climate, yeah. I mean, if Miss Marvel can be such a huge smash hit, and if all this other stuff can do really well, why aren't they giving that to G. Willow Wilson? Aren't they just like, hey, look, you got a pitch for this?
It'd be amazing to see someone like Gail Simone or G. Willow Wilson take over for Gen 13. Because they'd be so... Oh, Margaret Bennett. I mean, like, I don't want to give her everything because she's so fucking great, but like...
Because she's busy already.
Exactly. But it would be great to see, like, a feminist write Gen 13. For them to be like, so, this was written by a guy who gave people softcore pornography, and now I'm going to make a universe out of them. I think Gail Simone actually did write some of Gen 13. I think that was the problem. I think it was just really bad. I think she just didn't know what the hell to do with them. You gotta have a good pitch. That's the thing. You just gotta have a decent pitch.
You're right, Chad. Freakazoid does need to be in more things.
Oh my god. Freakazoid needs to be in fucking everything.
I remember, I think it was the Disney comics, they had like a big crisis event that brought over like DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and all that stuff that they owned into a thing in their pantheon of villains. Why don't they do that with the WB stuff? It can be Freakazoid and the Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and Hysteria.
And the Zeta Project.
Together. Zeta Project, technically part of the DC universe because he crossed over with Batman Beyond.
Yeah. Freakazoid is owned by Warner Brothers. Freakazoid could be in the DCU right now.
Dude, Snyder, come on. Seriously?
Isn't that fucking a great idea? Because, like, you could update his origin only slightly. Because he's literally a meme factory. Like, that's all you need to do. It's just like...
You want something to compete with Deadpool, DC Warner Brothers?
That would sell at a heartbeat.
Super teen extraordinaire.
And then you do your fucking Deadpool, or you do your Freakazoid Harley Quinn book.
Freakazoid makes more sense today than he did when he was made.
Yeah, it's true.
He is a man sucked into the internet, and instead of becoming an omnipotent godchild, he becomes a meme-spouting man-child.
That'd be fucking cool. That's a thing. You know what? Free of charge.
That's yours. I just want to see it happen.
Get somebody who's like really, really relevant to write that. Somebody who knows his jokes. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I don't know.
Who at DC is really funny right now?
At DC? That's a good question.
I would give it to Nick Spencer, but I think Nick Spencer is Marvel exclusive.
I think he is. Nick Spencer would do a fucking great job.
Nick Spencer is way too funny. Like, I read his stuff and I laugh uproariously, which, man, I think that's got to be a topic too. Funny comics.
Yeah, funny comics.
Funny comics are hard.
They are hard, because it's like, funny. Like,
and it's hard making the jump over. Like, Spider-Man in the comics is funny. Yeah. Movie Spider-Man is at a hard time being funny.
It's hard because, when
you read a joke versus when you hear a joke.
Yeah.
Because it's all in the delivery.
Movie Spider-Man should be funnier than comic Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. But he ain't.
well, give it a chance for, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Those movies are funny anyway.
Yeah,
so
they're
going to give us
funny.
a funny Spider-Man.
I'm very hopeful for the Spider-Man.
He's going to be quippy. He's going to be good.
Exactly. Well, there you go, guys. That was, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. Might as well wrap it up now, but...
one last good one from the chat, because I wish I came up with it. Spider-Man 2099 versus Batman Beyond.
Oh, that writes itself.
It does. They're in the future. They're shocking this. They're shocking that. It's way shui.
It's way shui.
They're just going to have an argument over whose slang is stupider.
Yep.
Then they're going to fight the Joker's gang, and they're going to ride around on their motorbikes. The one downside of... Batman Beyond, I don't think he had any truly exceptional villains.
Batman Beyond, I mean, like, I think they thought Ink was a great villain.
They kept bringing her back. She was definitely a good physical threat. And
yes.
And if you followed the series, he never actually beat her on his own.
The Royal Flush Gang, I think, were a great, issue for, 10 being the whole, the Catwoman thing element. That was really great.
They were another cool idea, and they had a cool arc, but,
That was tight, man. The last one where he's like, he takes her note and just throws it in the fucking garbage. After he totally has sex with her.
Yeah, totally.
You're like, no question.
Pretty hard stuff, man. Pretty
That
heavy.
was tough. That was a great fucking series.
That was a good one.
But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was the Elseworlds Exchange, talking about crossovers and the future of these two titans kind of getting together and what it means. Like, crossovers for me represent a brighter future for comic books. And since we're kind of in it already, we should be celebrating it by actually having tangible evidence that the industry is working. So I want to thank you guys so much for being here and being part of the show. Joel, I want to thank you for being here, of course, as always.
Always a pleasure. It's funny, some of these crossover ideas feel kind of like what we did last week with our verses, because it's funny how many crossovers are just based at, well, but what if they fought, though?
Right, exactly. But what if they fought, though?
What if they fought?
The great thing is you don't have to think of a story, though. With the fighting, it's just, they just fought.
And they fought for 20 pages.
Exactly. I mean, listen, those are the books that sell. What is happening on Cape Joel that we can look forward to seeing this week?
Well, obviously, because it's Wednesday, got all sorts of new books coming out. If you head on over to my channel right now, you can find Daredevil #4, which I reviewed. You can also find a brand new episode of the Comic Multiverse. That is the comic book show I do with Matt. Every week, we talk about the new DC Rebirth. We talk about that new Flash costume. Lots of good material on that show if you are so inclined to listen. I launched a new show, Cape Kitchen, which is just me eating that new Batman cereal. It has over 1,000 views right now, making it one of the more popular things I've done on my channel. Apparently, my calling has been to eat cereal on the internet this whole time.
Can't beat that.
I'm actually serious about trying to launch like an actual real show off the back, but I don't know if you've seen it, but there's that DC cookbook out there back in the day when like everyone had freaking cookbooks.
Yep.
So I'm thinking of buying that and then like every couple weeks trying a recipe off the back of it.
That sounds great.
There's like Green Lantern pizza and like Superman yogurt parfait. I'm like, I can do that.
God. Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I got to do my recipe for Krypton Punch is what I got to do. Because I make a mean Krypton Punch.
Oh, well, it has a little bit of kryptonite in it.
Just a little bit of kryptonite. That gives it its spice.
That's right.
It might kill you slowly like it does Lex Luthor, but you know.
But, you know, then you might get a cool power suit out of the deal.
You might get a badass power suit out of it.
Over here, we've got back issues coming out tomorrow. It's going to be Superman versus Spider-Man, where we talk about that at length. As such, we have a bunch of tangents that are spun out of that. And Monday sees the return of Dramatic Comics, where we do The Killing Joke. And we launched a new series called Panels and Pixels that stars Tiffany, where she plays comic book related video games with a special co-host every week. So
it's kind of a redo of your old video game
bonus
show.
round. It's like a rebranding of bonus round.
If you ever do the PS2 Punisher game, or maybe I'll have to capture some footage for that. I would love to talk about that one because the PS2 Punisher game is sick.
Like
legitimately sick.
Yeah, we have a PS2, so that would work out fine.
Wicked.
Yeah, that comes out probably bi-weekly. I don't know yet. We're still working it out, but probably not every week. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Cape Joel in the comment section or in the description box below this video. And thanks for sticking around during our little technical issues. I'm glad.
Sorry about that. Internet is bullshit.
Exactly. Also, it gives us our living.
That too. I'm sorry, Internet God.
It is bullshit and great. See you guys later.
You say it's bullshit now, but if it went out tomorrow.
Yeah, we'd be fucked. All right, see you guys next time. Thanks a lot for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.